We'll quickly move to the panel session that was suspended briefly for Professor Ndubisi to present because of his other schedules. We'll go straight to the first panel session with the sub-team, the most common mistakes enterprises are making today with cybersecurity investments. And the moderator for that session is Confidence Stavali. She's a cybersecurity awareness evangelist, cybersecurity professional, author, entrepreneur with over a decade's worth of experience in technology. She has a deep understanding of cybersecurity, fused with great communication skills, which enables her to communicate cybersecurity best practices in a relatable and engaging way with no jargon to audience of all types. Little wonder why she has been nicknamed the reliable cybersecurity queen. She used to say I should leave the rest. We'll go further from there. So thank you, our moderator. Next, the first panelist we are going to be calling on is Mr. Obadari Peter Adewale. Mr. Sunday Dixon is not around, so we will be having Mr. Afiz Ogunnipabi. And the last person is Chioma Uwago.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. This has to be very interactive so we can enjoy it because I know we are standing between you and the food. So we'll make it really quick and very informative. But everybody just started seeing the whole conference with their chest. So we have to liven up a bit. And today is Dry Jokes Wednesday. So maybe I should share some InfoSec jokes, okay? Have you heard of a band called Dark Web? They're always on tour. There's another dry joke I have. You have to read. I'm not a comedian. So the next joke I have is that there are two... Sorry. What are CISO's two biggest fears? Everybody working at the organization and everybody working outside of the organization. So yeah, am I correct or wrong? Correct. So give me a round of applause now. Let's just smile and relax a bit. Thank you so much for that rousing applause. And today I'm joined by great people to discuss the most common mistakes enterprises are making today with cybersecurity investment. But before I start to ask the questions about what they're doing wrong, I'm a very positive person. So I like to start with what we are getting right. So I will start from my right and then go on to my left and ask the questions. And I'm very pleased to have another gorgeous lady sitting by my side. Okay, so Dr. Badare, is there one thing you've noticed that most enterprises around Nigeria with the years of experience you have in the space that they're doing that one thing right with regards to investment in cybersecurity?
Okay, thank you very much, moderator, for the question. Okay, so that's a very tough question because yes, a lot has happened. When you look at the history of cybersecurity in Nigeria, especially when it comes to the investment side. But then I think what is very important is to be able to, you have to discuss it from sector perspective. Because if you generalize it, you will say we're not getting it right. But if you look at it just like what the other lady said, if you look at it from sector perspective, you understand, especially in the banking sector, the reality is they've done a lot of things well. They've learned over the years in terms of, proud to now, cybersecurity investment is just about, it was treated like a fashion, right? Yes. So, but now, responsible organization are thinking about it from risk assessment and business impact perspective. So, which is informing the kind of investment they're making. Unlike before, everybody just like, oh, what have you done? Do you have a firewall? Do you have an antivirus? Everybody's just doing it, haphazardly. There is no coordinated effort in terms of the investment. But right now, I think, because I work with a lot of the corporate entities, the banking sector have done a lot of things well. But then, if you look at the insurance, you look at, of course, don't talk about the government. But so in the private sector, I think we should give kudos, to the banking sector. And yes, there's a lot of room for improvement, but they've actually, because now people are looking at it from defense in depth. Unlike before, that when you're talking about cybersecurity, it's just from one layer perspective. But right now, the investment is cutting across us.
Thank you so much. Choma, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Confidence. Okay, so basically, I like the fact that you started from the positives. Yes, there's been a bit of improvement in terms of, if you look at business continuity, when it comes to compliance, besides the banks, virtually organizations across various vectors have actually complied to that. We are big in this part of the world with compliance, PCI DSS, ISO 27001, and all of that. But like Peter rightly said, I'm correct, right? There is room for improvement where we begin to look at the convergence, the OT and IT environments coming together. We're talking of interoperability and automation and all of that. Then you get to know that compliance is equally good, but security is the watchword.
Thank you so much. You really wrapped things up nicely there. So I will just begin to get to, let's speak about the things that are the mistakes, literally like our topic suggests. What are the most common mistakes enterprises are making today with regards to cybersecurity investments? I would just have you start off. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So my own experience has not really been within the Nigerian landscape, but I also try as much as possible to keep abreast with development around here. I would say there needs to be more emphasis on security awareness training, especially given the fact that anyone that follows security as a whole would understand that the first line of defense are the people within the organization, or your resources. They are the first line of defense that you need to actually educate and invest in to ensure that they understand the importance of security. Things like phishing campaigns are easily targeted at the resources at the lowest level. The other thing in there is there seems to be too much of like an horizontal way of working, where you have people doing so many things at the same time within security, as opposed to be where a vertical approach of doing things, where people actually specialize in a particular area within security. Security is a massive space, and you can't have a scenario where people are doing the same, virtually everything. You need people that are actually skilled in specific areas where you can then train them and then have expertise in that particular space. Now, the other thing is more things needs to be outsourced out to specialist in organizations so that you can get actual good value for money, as opposed to, where, just basically trying to do everything in-house without necessarily being able to specialize to get adequate returns in terms of performance and efficiency of anything you're trying to implement.
Thank you so much, Aviz. But I need to ask if you peeped into my notes. Because actually, I'm going to be asking the question around awareness and really how we're doing it and if we're doing it right. So, yeah, sure. So, but I just wanted to just recap on some of the key notes you mentioned around the importance of awareness, and I couldn't agree with you any less. We did some work with SMEs, thousands of them, in terms of upskilling them, and we found out that over 60% of the people who came through the program did not know how to identify a phishing email. So that's like just chiming into what some of the things you've said, and the structure where one person is your threat intelligence analyst, the same person is doing forensics, the same person is doing incident response, and it's just like you mentioned, packed into one. You also mentioned the issue of outsourcing, not trying to do everything internally. Having some set of fresh eyes would do a great deal of good. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Badare, you wanted to chime in?
Okay, so it's very easy to talk about all the mistakes. That's the sweet spot. Okay, so I think I would like to flip the question this way. And I'm going to throw a question to the audience to ask. Now, imagine if you have two incidents, all right? One incident cost $1 million, and another incident cost $100,000. So for the first incident, there's the it has the probability of occurrence of 1%, and the other one, which is the 100,000, has the probability of 10%. Which one will you protect first? Which one? I hope you understand my question. Two security incident, one with a value of $1 million with the probability of 1% occurrence. Then the incident B cost $100,000 with the probability of 10% of occurrence.
Obviously, I will try to protect the one which is of a higher value, $1 million. Even though the occurrence is only 1%, if it happens, the loss is huge. The second one, the occurrences, chances of occurring is 10%. But even if you multiply that, even if it happens 10 times, so it is going to be 100,000 into 10, 1 million, same. So protect the one which is going to happen, a huge loss.
Okay.
That is my answer. Thank you.
Interesting. Okay, so can we have, because of time, okay.
Sorry, permit me to ask one question. I have suggested you add which one is more critical, those two infrastructure you mentioned. So in adding that, it will enable me to respond appropriately. Because if the one of the 100,000 is is less critical, I would choose the one of the $1 million. Because criticality comes into place.
Exactly, but just on the general note, because I understand what you're trying to say, because really, but what I'm trying to, we're talking about mistakes. You understand? So we don't really, yes, you're very right about criticality, but just that is the probability of occurrence of the incident. You understand? So yes, you're right about criticality. That's another, there's a lot of, when it comes to cybersecurity investment, there is a lot of judgmental calls, right? So, which is the challenge, you understand? Because most of the time, but don't forget that fundamentally, so this is what I'm driving at. Fundamentally, to be honest with you, no matter how critical an asset is, what we need to understand first in cybersecurity investment is first about the business. You understand? Because cybersecurity is an enabler of the business. And the rule of thumb is this: the cost of protection, the cost of countermeasure must not be greater than the cost of the business. So, and the only way you can do that is through well-defined risk assessment and business impact. So, which is the mistakes I see a lot of organizations are doing. Because, which is why, if you look at targets, if you look at this company, if I wanted to use Target, but this logistic company that was attacked by ransomware and they lost over $500 million, right, recently, because they did not prioritize and think through the risk assessment. They had a lot of Windows XP and has been declared end of life, right? Now, in terms of criticality, I'm sure they will look at it, workstations. Hello. Now we're talking from what you said. Nobody did anything because they felt it's workstations, Windows XP, and they left those systems. But at the end of the day, they were ransomed, and over 4,500 of the PCs were hijacked. So what happened? Don't forget, it's about the business. They lost operation, and in 10 days of not being able to work, they lost $500 million. So those are the kind of mistakes I think organizations are making when it comes to investment in cybersecurity. But the rule of thumb is make sure that the cost of protection does not outweigh the cost of protecting the asset. It's very important.
Thank you so much, Dr. Badare. I think you really mentioned about impact. Can you hear me? Okay, I think, gotten it to work now. So I was saying that you're speaking about, I think I will tie this to the crown jewels understanding what the crown jewels are, and so being able to use a risk assessment or risk-based approach to prioritizing investment based on things like impact and, of course, the cost to the business. Thank you so much for also bringing up the fact that cybersecurity is actually a business enabler. I think that was a really, really great point you pulled up. I don't know, Chama, do you have something to add to that as well?
Of course, certainly. Basically, like he rightly said about the investment in cybersecurity, most people often wait to be reactionary. So now it's tweaking the, how do I say it now, the trend to invest more in proactively staying ahead of this threat actors. And 80% investment should be more on the preventive tools, while 20 is should be on detection, because the idea is this: understanding the tactics, techniques, and procedures of these threat actors, it enables you work with real-time actionable threat intelligence to keep you ahead of these threat actors. And how can you do that? When you have better resilience, you have your system fortified, you have amplified your defense, and you have the real manpower, the real expertise on ground. So back to what the question is. The truth of the matter is this: every organization have their mandates well cut out for them. If you're in the banking sector, you know you are just there as an intermediary to get from funds from the surplus and fund the businesses of the deficit. Cybersecurity is by no means your core area of competence. Somebody mentioned outsourcing, which I totally agree. Because being a cybersecurity firm or an MSSP like Cyberdome, we do the heavy lifting for you. We give you the real-time actionable intelligence. We monitor your infrastructure, your network 24/7. To prevent staying ahead of these people, because at the end of the day, your data is encrypted. So what? You have to go and find a way to negotiate with them. At the end of the day, they leave a back door. They are going to come back someday. So why do you have to wait till you get into that in the first place? So cybersecurity should be seen as a serious business, okay? The fact that you have an IT, a head of IT in your organization, that still does not cut it. Because someone mentioned about having a door and having a police dog or having a dog outside. It is the complexity trying to protect just a single file from being infected by a malware is overwhelming, is horrendous, is huge. So why do you bother yourself with all of that? Getting a door and not knowing how to operate it, it's totally as good as not having it in the first place. A lot of organizations have spent so much, by the way, in cybersecurity, buying tools they cannot even operate. By the way, Cyberdome is vendor agnostic. So we work with what you have to optimize what you currently have on ground. So basically, expertise and procedure, it's equally the way to go. Having a process on ground to follow when this happens, and outsourcing cybersecurity for your organization such that you can function optimally and give a unique service experience to your clients while ensuring that their data are secure and safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chema. But just listening to both of you, something just popped in my mind, and I'll go off what I planned to ask. What came to mind is, we're speaking so much about prevention and defense. Have you seen that lack of response mechanisms in organizations has actually come out to be a very big, let's say, a very big mistake for the enterprise?
Can I say something before you say something? Okay, so I said something. I said real-time actionable intelligence. So we do the recommendation and follow through for implementation on the side of the client. So we give you the real-time actionable intelligence. So we follow through to ensure that you implement them. Okay. So I just wanted to say to that before you.
Okay, thank you. So maybe I'll start off with Afiz, and then we'll come to Dr. Badare. I was asking if, from the work you've been doing, if you see that the lack of, I don't know, but I'm not going to assume, but have you seen that there is a lack of planning to respond to incidences? And has that actually played out to be a major mistake you've seen in some organizations? What are your thoughts?
Definitely. So having a response is one thing. Having an effective response is another thing, which is part of the reasons why I talked about outsourcing and trying to ensure that you get to get the right people with the right expertise in place. So, I mean, depending obviously on the size of organization, we talked about business, the business itself, in terms of the risk of exposure and all the other factors that needs to be factored in. But my experience has always seen, even in the most highly sensitive organizations like defense industry, the lack of adequate response has always been a big problem. And it's usually because organizations want to do that in-house themselves without having invested adequately into in their resources, in terms of not just around security awareness, we're talking about investing in expertise and getting the right people on board. So yes, it's always been a problem, and it's always going to be a problem as long as organizations don't understand the importance of having adequate response in place. Now, to buttress some of the things that Chema also mentioned, they need to invest in proactive, measures like threat intelligence, and even that should carry most of your investment in the first instance, because you don't want to find yourself in a position where you have to respond only to find out you don't have the adequate response tools in place.
Okay, so before I move on to, I take your thoughts on that. I want to add, Jara, on top of the question that you want to respond to. Okay, do you find that there are non-negotiables, when you're speaking about protecting enterprise? Because I really want us to call out what the what actionable advice is that people can leave this whole making sure that the enterprises are doing. So are there non-negotiables, and is there any such thing as non-negotiables across board for enterprises? And then you can answer that as a second question after responding further to incident response.
Okay, so I think for incident response, you need to look at it from, it's a combination of three factors: the people, the process, and the technology. So I think most of the time when it comes to incident response, it's a breakdown of the three. Do you understand? Because most of the time, what you see, or what I've seen is, in whether you do outsourcing or it's something like in-house, most security operations center is actually that people have built over time. I think it's more of an indicator of attack. Indicator of compromise rather than indicator of attack. Indicator of compromise is when something has happened. That's when people start to go up and down to say, how do we fix this? But instead, I think there should be a paradigm shift in terms of the incident response to say, things are happening real time, you can respond, to prevent what is happening to you. But you need knowledge, because most of the time you could have your command center and people are just watching, they don't know all the traffic that is flowing, and then of course you have the tool, which is why I said is a combination of the people, the process, and the technology for you to be able to respond positively. Now, in terms of what should you negotiate when we talk, in terms of
non-negotiables,
non-negotiables,
like it's a must. You should have.
Well, the reality is, when it comes to cybersecurity, I think there are things that is a must-have. Is a must-have. There are things that you categorize them under good have. You understand? But the must-have are the fundamentals. Do you understand? Which is why it's very tricky. I heard when Chairman talked about all the improvement in the cybersecurity investment space in Nigeria, where a lot of focus is on compliance. Do you understand? I'm a compliance guy. Most of the time, you do PCI DSS, you do ISO 27001. But I think there should be a 360-degree mindset, because cybersecurity is not about compliance. In fact, if you do cybersecurity well, compliance should just be should be as a result of doing cybersecurity well, than for you to be thinking about compliance and then think you can achieve cybersecurity. It can never. It is not possible. So in terms of those non-negotiables, I think, believe me, it's a bit of chicken and egg situation. So you really need to know your enterprise. Do you understand? Know yourself. Like you said, know your crown jewels. Put appropriate protection in place, because it is better. So you can't. I don't think you can overspend when it comes to cybersecurity. You can't. A lot of scenarios have been patented today, just like Dr. Kinney said about, you have the dog. You think about your perimeter security. You think about all of those pieces. So I think you just have to have appropriate protection.
if there's one thing I really heard over and over again, is the need to go back to the basics. I think I'm just summarizing that by saying that a lot of us, we think about cybersecurity and it's all about shiny, nice tools to have. Yes, but please, while we are at this, and from what we've just said in this panel, the basics, going back to the basics, is very, very key to securing the enterprises. I think that's what I've heard over and over again. I see you looking at me. Don't worry, I'm not rounding up. So my last question will be around cyber awareness. What are the biggest mistakes you have seen enterprises make with their investments, and how do you think they can be corrected? I think emphasis on how they can be corrected. I don't want this to be a beer parlor conversation where you're only talking about the problems of Nigeria, but with no solutions for them. So, so can we just really speak about? I think I'll start with Choma, yeah, and then we go this other way still.
Thank you very much, Confidence. So basically, I would like to start by saying, in cybersecurity, when you try to protect everything, you end up protecting nothing. So that is why first you inventorize, then you prioritize. Okay, because the goal is to align to your business objective and also focus on your critical assets. Then to what we are going to do different with respect to creating awareness within the cybersecurity space. Actually, building an ecosystem entails three critical elements: the government, the private sector, and of course the academia. Now, how does that work hand in hand? There should be, there's like a tripod, which there should be like a synergy with these three elements. At the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of information gathering, sharing, awareness, and all of that. And if we're able to take this seriously at the end of events like this, so we don't end up having this like, it becomes like a show business or entertainment, and we go out there and walk our talk. We end up seeing at the end of the day, these would be translated to where we actually want to be in terms of cybersecurity awareness. And again, I tell people, your system or your organization in terms of cybersecurity is as strong as your weakest link. If my weakest link is maybe the secretary in my office, all she needs to do is to compromise the system, knowingly or unknowingly, and boom, we're all in trouble. Okay? So having said that, I think there's equally need for us to do more with respect to the remote workforce. We can also boost productivity if we're able to invest in the right trainings, as well as creating awareness among staff, and also letting the ones who are critical to operation in terms of cybersecurity write these certification exams. We're out there to do business. How would you rather pay for cybersecurity by way of ransomware, business downtime? Why don't you just outsource so that we do the weight lifting for you and you end up focusing on your core area of mandate? The bottom line, I cannot say that more than enough. Customers are confident when they know that their data is secure and safe with you. And the training, by the way, Cyberdome is in the forefront of digital transformation and technological advancement in the country through one of our programs, which is the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, NICE program. Okay, we try to bridge the gap within the cybersecurity space while enhancing and building capacity as well. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure that we bring ourselves up to par and ensure that our digital space is secure and safe. Again, finally, I think I would say that it's no longer a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, but when. Do not wait until it's too late. The time to act is now.
Thank you so much, Chama. So we're going to take closing remarks, which is actually a response to my question. So just respond to my question and your closing remarks, Dr. Badari. But while we're going to have them speak, if you have any questions, it's a good time to write it down and send it off here so we can take the questions really quickly. If you have any questions, please, you have the floor, Mr. Viz.
Okay, so in terms of trying to improve cyber awareness, I would say there needs to be focus on maybe like there's no one size fits all to all of these things. So if you're designing your cybersecurity awareness training, or an organization, for example, is going out there to outsource a particular part of their cybersecurity solution, MSP, to any organization, it needs to be aligned to whatever business area or industry you are operating in. Because if you just go out there to just outsource or design some form of training for your staffs that doesn't actually emphasize on the risks associated with your industry, then you're not going to be driving value that way. There needs to be proper understanding of the environment, the risk associated with the environment, or the risk of data leakage associated with the environment, to then allow you to then go out there to get the right solutions or the right form of training for your staffs. Like we've talked about, the fact that your first line of defense are your people within the organization. Your policies, obviously, are also very important. Your processes, they need to be, they need to align very well and efficiently with your organization and where you're operating. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think for me, in terms of cybersecurity awareness, my last word will be we need to get to a level whereby we talk about cybersecurity intelligent quotient, just like we talk about, you know, financial intelligent quotient, emotional intelligence, and all of those stuff. So right now, because of digitization, I think most cybersecurity awareness training should focus, you know, on increasing people intelligent quotient when it comes to cybersecurity. You know, that will be my last word. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to also just add that, just as a tip, maybe we should also really place reminders around our workplaces. Like we place reminders about different things, and cybersecurity awareness should be something we can do on a daily with those reminders. I know that he has come to say our time is up, but I will still share my last joke. Why did the band never get a gig? It was called 1023 MB. Thank you so much.
Any question?
Starting with Dr. Peter, and I think I should also highlighted on the fact that the public sector is quite in the background when it comes to cybersecurity issues, and have been coming again and again. Well, I represent one of the public sectors. I would like to have highlights of baby steps that the public sector can take to actually ensure that we are also leveraging on the information available in such a space like this, and we're also improving our security as appropriate, different from what have been the experience.
Thank you. Please, please let's just get the questions so that they answer it all together. Please, next question. After this, one more, please. Please, the question straight.
Okay, so I heard a lot about outsourcing. So this question goes to Cyberdome. So how do you vet your employees that manage client critical infrastructure?
Thank you. One more question, please. The absence of none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good question. I think the first baby step is, for me, for private sector, is first and foremost do your digital. Public sector. Oh, did I say private? Oh, sorry, public sector. You need to have some form of digital maturity assessment. Do you understand? When that assessment is done, you'll be able to do, you know, asset classification to know what are the critical, you know, depending on which, you know, when you're talking about the MDAs, the ministries, the department, and the agency, you know, wherever you fall on, your might just be maybe your website is your most critical asset. Do you understand? But that classification has to be done, because what is a tier 1 asset to me as a ministry might not be what is. Do you understand? So everyone must do that. So which comes from that digital maturity assessment. And when that is done, of course, you know, you can now start to be building controls. And when you're building controls, you need to build controls around those three things: the people, the process, and technology. Because most of the time, people focus only on technology. You understand? You know, like Chairman said, it's a tripod. If one of the tripod stand is not standing well, your people have to be trained. Then you have to have the policies, the procedures that governs what people will do. And then, of course, the technology can then start to see it. Whether you want to start from your antivirus, if you are working from home, you are thinking about virtual private network, you know, you need to have perimeter security, your firewall. Do you understand? You know, gradually, but you need to do an assessment to know where you are before you can do that asset classification. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Chama, can you respond?
Thank you very much for that question. At Cyberdome, we've built a very strong and robust mechanism and policy in place to avoid any type of or any kind of violation or misuse when handling customers' sensitive data. So that is a no-no for us. Measures have been put in place, and it's also been, how do I put it now? Measures have been put in place to forestall any such of that to ever occur. We have a track record of being very professional and ethical in our dealings with our clients, and our testimonial is out there and speaks for us. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator and the panelists. Please hold on, please. Please can we put. Thank you very much. We're calling on Session Director of Training, Mr. Olabode Agbola, for the presentation of our award to our panelists and moderator. Okay. To Chioma Iwagu, please. That's one. To Dr. Peter Obadari. Mr. Afiz, sorry, there is no breakdown now because you just came in today, so we'll definitely send it across to you. Thank you. Also, a session handshake to our moderator, Confidence Stevely. Thank you all.